Senator Lindstrom, we're just getting started.
Okay.
Welcome to the Retirement Systems Committee hearing. My name is Mark Coulterman. I'm Senator representing District 24, Seward, York, Polk, and a bit of Butler County. And I serve as chair of this committee. The committee will take up the hearing this afternoon. And it's really to just evaluate the underfunded political subdivisions, the defined benefit plans. So today I would ask that you please silence your cell phones. If you're going to be speaking, that you move to the front of the room and be ready to go. And then we just have people testifying that have been asked to testify. Bring your blue sheets if you're planning to testify. And when you get up here, please spell your name for the record. If you have copies, I'd encourage you to bring copies. We need 8 copies, even though there's only 3 of us here right now. So with that, I'd like to introduce my legal counsel on the left, Kate Allen, and my committee clerk, Senator. Well, I advanced her. Katie Quintero is my committee clerk, and we have my assistant committee chairman, Brett Lindstrom, has called in, and I believe people will be coming and going. I think Senator Clements said he would be back. And that just leaves you. What's your name, sir?
Mike McDonald, LD5 South Mall.
So we're going to ask that, I want you to hear this. So the first people that will testify will be OPS, and then we're going to move to the Omaha Civilian, Omaha Police and Fire, Douglas County, OPPD, and Metro Area Transit. If you're last, you're not least. But it shouldn't take all that long this afternoon. To open the hearing, though, before Dr. Logan speaks, I'd like to give you a little bit of background as to actually why we're here and why we have this hearing on an annual basis. And I know this is going to sound boring to some of you, but for those listening outside, and I do think that we have people that listen to this on occasion, just a little bit of background. In 2013, the Omaha Police and Fire Plan was funded at 45%, and the City of Omaha Civilian Plan was funded at 54%. The actuary noted in the evaluation reports for each of these plans that the City of Omaha had been paying less than the actually required contributions, or the ARCs, for a number of years. And I'm going to give you some quotes from the actuary at that time about the City of Omaha Civilian Police and Fire evaluation reports. And I quote, "The contributions to the City of Omaha Employees Retirement System have been less than the full actuarial contribution rate for the last 10 years. Given the current scheduled contribution rates, the contribution shortfall is expected to increase, the funded status is expected to decline, and the system assets are expected to be exhausted in about 20 years, even if all actuarial assumptions are met." That came from the 2013 Civilian Evaluation Report. And from the Police and Fire Evaluation Report, they said, if the current scheduled contribution rates and benefit provisions remain unchanged, the plan is projected to run out of money in about 20 years. If the trust fund runs out of money and if all promised benefits continue to be paid, the plan would revert to pay-as-you-go system at that time. Since there will be no trust fund assets to supplement the monthly benefits paid to the retired members, contributions would need to be increased equal to the annual benefits paid to the retired members at that time. In 2013, in addition to those 2 plans, there were 6 additional other political subdivisions with defined benefit plans funded less than 80%. That was the Douglas County Retirement Plan. It was at 61%. The Eastern Health Agency for Nebraska was funded at 64%. Lincoln Fire and Police was funded at 66%. Omaha Public Power District was funded at 72%. The metro area transit hourly was funded at 73%. The Omaha School Employees Retirement OSERS was funded at 73%. So as a consequence to all of this, in 2014, Senator Heath Mello, with the help of Jeremy Nordquist, both senators from Omaha at the time, introduced LB 759, which provided oversight to the Nebraska Retirement System Committee of political subdivisions with underfunded defined benefit plans. In Senator Mello's bill introduction, he stated the following: the state does actually have the fiscal oversight responsibility to make sure local entities, if they're not meeting their obligations, to explain why they're not meeting their obligations, and if they need substantial policy changes to be made to meet those obligations, that they should be bringing those proposals forward and or advocating and working with the legislature to make sure these plans become solvent, or remain solvent in the future. So in 2014, LB 759 was enacted and codified at Nebraska Revised Statute 13-2402. And it requires any governing entity that offers a defined benefit plan, which was open to new employees on January of 2004, to file a report with the Nebraska Retirement System Committee if most recent actuarial evaluation reports indicate that the contributions do not equal the actuarial requirement for funding and that the funded ratio of the plan is less than 80%. The report must include at a minimum an analysis of the future benefit changes, contribution changes, or other proposed corrective action to improve the plan's funding conditions. So our process beginning in 2014 has been the following. We send letters in September to all political subdivisions with defined benefit plans, and we've asked them to confirm their funding status of their plans. If the plan was funded below 80%, the political subdivision was asked to complete the reporting form created by our committee. The reporting form was created to ensure that the committee received all necessary data and the consistent categories of information reported by each political subdivision. In addition to actuarial data, reporting information would include a narrative of the circumstances that led to the underfunding of the plan, a description of corrective actions implemented to improve the funding status of the plan, including benefit changes, increased contribution rates, and or employee contributions, a description of any changes in the actuarial methods and our assumptions since the previous actuarial evaluation report, and a description of recent and ongoing negotiations with bargaining groups that may impact the plan's funding status. Each political subdivision has been instructed to return the completed form along with its most recent evaluation report and experience study, and informed of a public hearing date to present the report to this committee. We held that first hearing for the underfunded plan reports and presentations in 2014, and since that point in time, we have had a hearing every year since. For a number of years, 8 political subdivisions had underfunded plans. This year, there are 6 political subdivisions. We've had 2 plans that have improved above 80%, and I believe we've worked with them closely over the last 6 years, and I think it's paid off. Lincoln Fire and Police has improved to over 80%, and Eastern Nebraska Health Agency were not required to report this year either because they are over 80%. This year, as I indicated, we have 6 that will still be reporting. Douglas County is at 73.9%. Metro Transit hourly is at 71.5%. Omaha civilian employees is at 53.7%. Omaha Police and Fire is at 57.5%. Omaha Public Power District is at 75.5%. And OSERS is at 63%. In conclusion, I'd just like to say that the 6 that are here have all been willing to at least listen to our concerns. Our goal is not to be the big bully on the block, but our goal is to see that the people that have pensions promised to them, get those promises fulfilled. And if we can't get these plans over 80%, we have less likelihood that they will be fulfilled long term, which causes us to take a hard look at what they're offering. So again, it's not our intent to be the big bully on the block, but it is our intent to work with the 6 organizations, just like we have with the 8. And I will tell you that by and large, we've had a tremendous relationship with all people involved. And it's very nice to have you all come and try and improve your plans for the people that are working for you. Because these are promises that have been made to these people in good faith. And if we can't live up to those promises, we're not acting in the best interest of our constituents and our employees. And most of this money that gets paid into these pension plans comes right back to the people of the state of Nebraska, because the amount of money that get paid out on a monthly basis in this state are astronomical. And so, and by and large, most of that money stays right in the state of Nebraska's economy. So with that, that's just a little bit of background. I felt it was important for you to understand why we do what we do here, and look forward to hearing from the people today. So with that, I would ask Dr. Cheryl Logan to come forward, or a representative from OPS, to speak on what they've done this past year. Welcome.
Good afternoon. It's good to see you again. Senator Colsterman, members of the Retirement Systems Committee, my name is Cheryl Logan, CHERYL LOGAN. I am the superintendent of the Omaha Public Schools. We are the largest school district in Nebraska, educating more than 52,000 students. I want to share my testimony by thanking the members and staff of this committee. In my time as superintendent, I have had the opportunity to work with all of you as we continue to do everything that we can to solidify the Omaha Schools Employees Retirement System. As you know, this has been a transformational year for OSERS. I want to thank each of you publicly for your support of OSERS and your efforts to ensure the passage of LB 147, which will transfer the management of OSERS to the Public Employee Retirement Board. The Board of Education and I are incredibly grateful for Senator Colterman's leadership and commitment to getting the pivotal legislation passed. Since the passage of LB 147, the Board of Education has worked closely with the OSERS trustees to effectuate a smooth transition of operating responsibility back to the Board of Education. The Board of Education has adopted a new set of operating rules and regulations for OSERS. These rules and regulations largely mirror those of IMPERS, which we believe should facilitate transition of management to the PERB in 2024. The compliance audit called for in LB 147 is essentially complete, and you will be receiving or have received that report thus far. Following the PERB's review of the compliance audit, we will work with the PERB to determine next steps, including the possible submission of an IRS determination letter. We will also continue to work closely with the PERB as the preparation for the transition of management really starts to ramp up in 2023. I am pleased to report that the district was once again able to budget for and contribute to OSERS an amount in excess of the actuarially required contribution. The district made an ARC payment of $29.5 million in August, which included $7.7 million in excess of what was actuarially required. This is the 4th consecutive year that the Board of Education has transferred more funds to the plan than was actuarially required. That said, and to be completely transparent, we anticipate that it will be more difficult for the district to contribute amounts in excess of what is actuarially required. At this time last year, the plan actuary, Kavanaugh McDonald, was working to finalize the 5-year actuarial experience study. We shared with you then that we anticipated that there would be changes to the current actuarial assumptions. That anticipated change came to fruition, and we noted that the assumed rate of return is being gradually reduced from 7.5% to 7% by 2025. Obviously, the reduction in the actuarial assumption, when coupled by the lower rates of return we are seeing in the current climate, will likely result in a potentially significant increase in the actuarially required contribution. We all understand that each decision the district makes affects every employee in our workforce and every student in our care. Our commitment to sound financial management and fiscal prudence is essential to our ability to manage both our responsibility to educate students and our duties to OSERs. As the transfer of management of OSERs to the PERB continues, we will keep this committee apprised of the transition progress. I would like to take a moment of personal privilege to thank Senator Colterman for his service. I would also like to acknowledge the work behind the scenes of Committee Counsel Kate Allen. We owe you both a debt of gratitude for helping us make the progress we have to date. Thank you both, and good luck with whatever you have planned next. To the rest of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Logan. Are there any questions? Senator Lindstrom, do you have any questions?
No question.
Thank you. Just a general comment, and this needs to be on the record. You arrived 5 years ago.
I did.
I think I was one of the early people that met you at a function in Omaha, and you told me we needed to get together. And I would tell the people of this state and the people in Omaha that you've lived up to your word every inch of the way along since I first met you. We talked about the challenges that face Omaha public schools when it comes to their pension plan. And you asked if we could do the investments, and we did that. You asked if we could take over the management, and we are in the process of doing that. Those transitions have gone very easy, very well, simply because of the leadership that you've shown and the people that you have working for you. I hear nothing but good reviews from Neppers that there's a great working relationship, as well as your people. And the reports that we received from both your the people that you hired to do this transition, the audit people, it's been nothing but positive. And I really wanted to thank you for making, since you've arrived, you've made more than you needed to make in contributions for your ARC every year. And that's exactly why this legislation was passed back in 2014 to show improvement. The only concern that I have, and you have the same concern, is you're only 63% funded, but at the same time, that's an obligation that you will continue to have, and I know you'll work towards completing that. So with that, I would like to thank you on behalf of our committee and myself. So unless there's any other questions, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Okay. Bernard Indenbosch, Omaha Civilian Plan.
Good afternoon, Senator Colterman, Senator McDonald, Senator Lindstrom,
Welcome,
and Ms. Allen.
Bernard.
I wish I could say that I think I've been at this particular meeting and every one that you've had. So my name is Bernard Indenbosch. First name is spelled B-E-R-N-A-R-D. Last name is 3 words. First word is lowercase I-N. Second word is lowercase d as in David, E-N. And third word is capital B as in boy, O-S-C-H. And I am a deputy city attorney with the city of Omaha who represents both pension systems and works obviously with the administration on issues related to it. We're in year 2 of having a new system actuary. I actually envisioned having the actuary with us just in the event that you had any actuarial questions, but due to COVID travel restrictions, Milliman's representatives are not able to attend. I do want to address the experience study. We did have an experience study that was approved in October. That was for a period of 2016 to 2020. And didn't result in a significant number of assumption changes. Probably the most significant economic change was a reduction in the cash balance interest crediting rate from 6 to 5.25. The other significant adjustment was the change in the mortality assumption, which had a significant effect, and I'll talk about that momentarily on the funded status. This is the second experience study that the board adopted the experience study, and the results of that experience study were actually used in the actual report effective January 1st of 2022. So the report that I sent you in October did include the new assumptions that were recommended in the experience study. As is the case for this, as in the last experience study, the effect of the experience study, albeit necessary, obviously, to change those assumptions, does have an effect on the funded ratio. The most significant was the last experience study recommended a reduction in the rate of return from 8% to 7.5%. And with those particular changes, and that obviously had an effect on the long-term expectation, or at least the curve to get to being funded at 100%. In fact, for example, in looking at the experience study, if one had used those assumption changes for 2021, the funded ratio for 2021 would have changed from 53.25% to 51.63%, so about 1.5%. We found relative to the experience study before that, it was more like a 3 or 4% because of the change in the return of investment assumption. Fortunately, in 2021, we had a return of approximately 18%. And obviously, sitting here next year, I can only anticipate that it will not be 18%, obviously. The net assets of the system on an actuarial basis are $274 million as of January 1st of 2022, and the market value was $304 million, with an actuarial funded ratio of 53.7%. Now, the significant thing is there is at least, sorry, I muted. There is at least some hope in that, because the investment return and the system fund amount are smoothed over a 5-year period, which obviously has a tendency to take away some of the peaks and valleys, and will hopefully help in the report that we would anticipate next year. And of course, it's never fun to come to one of these and have the lowest funded percentage of all the systems you look at. That being said, though we're roughly the same funded percentage as we were in 2014, I think the story is significantly better than that, particularly when you take into account the assumption changes. And as a result, in 2015, all the civilian bargaining groups implemented changes in benefits. We moved to a cash balance plan for new hires. Current employees had a reduction in benefits in the future. Retirement ages were raised. And the years in order to qualify for a pension were increased. At the time that those changes were made, Kavanaugh McDonald projected that we would be fully funded in 2048. I'm happy to say that this year, as we're 7 years into those particular changes, the current report is that we'll be fully funded in 2040. So there's been an 8 years have been taken off that amount. Now, obviously, that has some part to do with good returns in some of the years. But even if you go back and look at the return, there was a year 4 years ago where we had a negative return, but because of the smoothing in the system, it ended up being about a 5.8% return for the system. So though it's certainly not pleasant to be here with the funded ratio, and I know you'll probably ask me about ARC, and we did not make ARC coverage where our numbers, whereas 7-8 years ago we were 15 or 20 points below ARC. We've been anywhere in the neighborhood of either meeting it or 2.5% short, or 2.5% short. I'm sorry, over the past couple of years, and frankly, again, those are somewhat affected by the changes of assumptions that we have made. So the bad news is the funding percentage. I think the good news is, with the economic changes and assumptions, we're in a better place moving forward. Have changes, assumptions that not only one, but frankly, both actuaries that we've had work with our plan are comfortable with. We've withstood some changes to mortality assumptions on 2 different cases. And the biggest thing that's occurred is good or bad, Our transition to the cash balance plan was every person hired after March 1st of 2015 would be hired in the cash balance plan. As we sit here today, 7.5 years after that, we are at 46.5% of our employees are in the cash balance plan. 53.5% of our employees are still in the legacy plan. The good news for us is the normal cost of the cash balance plan is quite a bit lower than what it is for the legacy plan. And the result is obviously the big difficulty of this particular plan is funding the unfunded actuarial contributions. The normal cost for the current employees is actually under 11%, and it's going down. Whereas contributions are in excess of 28%, or approximately 28% when you include the city and the employees' contributions. So as far as where we are with our bargaining groups, all our bargaining groups in the civilian sector have bargaining agreements through 2025. The most recent round of negotiations, the only change was we did lower the years necessary to invest in the cash balance plan from 10 years to 5 years. We found that the 10-year period made it prohibited to hire people, particularly people that were in the middle of their careers in the 40s and 50s. Found it difficult to come to the city if it was going to have to be 10 years of work prior to the time that they would be able to take advantage of the pension system, particularly when the employee contribution to the pension system was in excess of 10%. That was actually the price of that was actuarially determined, and that's obviously made a part of this particular rate and the projections therein. So, as I said, the percentage is not where we would like to be. I think the work of this committee, and frankly, the work that had to be done, as you read in your preliminary remarks, this system, absent some change, was going to be out of cash in 20 years, meaning that nobody was going to get assisted, nobody was going to get funded. That is no longer the case. The funded ratio may appear to be the same, but if you look at the projections, that's not what the case is. We're in a far better place moving forward, and hopefully, notwithstanding what the investment returns for 2022, we're in a place where we're going to continue those contributions. The normal cost for the existing pensions is continuing to increase, and hopefully we can get to the arc. I will bring up one thing, because I suspect if I don't, Senator Coulterman, you will. When I was before this committee last year, there was some discussion about the Charter Convention, and there was, in fact, a Charter Convention that met last summer. You had asked, and I did submit to that Charter Convention a request that they consider changing the language, and I think it's 6.07 of the Charter, that requires substantially equal contributions by the city and the employees. That was presented to them. I provided them a memo that they received prior to at the start of the Charter Convention, and I did discuss it with them in a meeting, and they met in committees and decided to bring forward what they wanted to bring forward, and then the city council brought a subset of those forward for a vote. Unfortunately, the Charter Convention did not make that recommendation, which I don't know that I can answer for them, so to speak. The reality is, and I don't know if fair or unfair, is, significant changes are made. We're seeing some positive. I know it's very slow. That's very difficult for people to understand, but we are seeing those positive changes. So that is not the only mechanism by which charter changes can be brought. City council can adopt an ordinance at any point in time to put it on a ballot. And I certainly can indicate that that's what this committee would like to have done, but obviously other people can make similar requests. I have some ability to make a suggestion. I don't have an ability to make anybody do anything necessarily. So I figured I would address that prospectively, because I figured if I didn't, and I probably will still be addressing it, but in any event. And then I'll say, as I conclude my remarks, I do, and again, I'll say it this time, but I won't try not to be duplicative. I thank you, Senator Coulterman. I appreciate, and Ms. Allen as well, for your time. I know that your time on the committee is coming to an end. I appreciate, as a public servant myself, I appreciate when I see other public servants who care about their job, who work hard, do things in an appropriate and professional manner. Even though I've been in front of this committee on many times in a position where it was not a pleasant place to sit, I felt I've always been treated appropriately, professionally, and I very much respect that, and I appreciate that. And I know that when we have had the tough questions, it's nothing more than your concern for what you're seeing for other citizens. So I thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. Do you have a question, Senator McDonald?
Thank you, Bernard, for being here. Thanks for your 23 years of service to the citizens of
26
Omaha.
and a half.
26 and a half. Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Unbelievable.
Yes. I haven't been paying attention, but thank you. You've done a great job for the city of Omaha. Do you think if this committee wanted to have that meeting with the Omaha City Council, talk about the charter, I know they're in the process right now and just finished the convention, that's something that they'd be willing to sit with us as a city council and have that discussion going forward?
I think so. I think the mayor would as well. The reality is the charter convention made a number of recommendations. They only moved forward a small portion of those. So there's just as many recommendations that didn't get moved forward. And the expectation is that they're going to bring those forward in the next year or two, is at least what they've relayed to us. So absolutely. And I'm happy to help coordinate that, whether it's with, obviously, if it's a full city council, it'd have to be a public meeting. We could break it into smaller groups, or maybe with the finance group or one or more of those groups. I'm absolutely willing to facilitate that. And I have no doubt that they would certainly meet with you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Lindstrom, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
I appreciate you being here, Bernard. We've had, as you said, a pretty good relationship, and we've met privately in the past, along with the mayor. I'd be redundant if I didn't express my concerns. While your funded ratio did increase slightly, you had a good rate of return last year, 12.9%. Do you have any indication where you're at right now, or approximately how it's trending this year? Because we don't have 22 yet.
We're not. I think what I would say about this particular group is it's a relatively conservative investment strategy. The last I heard was, it was less than 10% and less than negative 10%. Because I think there's some concerns that you're going to see some systems that have negative returns that are consistent with what we saw in 2008, close to 20 or 20. But the last I had any discussion, that was not the case, though I do know that the third quarter in particular was incredibly volatile.
Right. Well, the concern that I have, and I've always been blatantly honest with you, the percentage of the ARCs that you pay, the actual required contributions over the last 5 years has continually declined. In 2016, you paid 106.81%. But then in 2017, you paid 91.2% of the ARC. In 2018, you paid 86.8%. And in 2019, you paid 87.4%. And last year, you paid 88.24% of the ARC. We don't have this year's yet. And your unfunded actuarial liability actually decreased slightly from 230 to 229 million. But my concern is, and this is exactly what we saw with Omaha Public Schools plan, they weren't making their ARC payments. And that's what's, if you go back to 2014, that's what Kavanaugh McDonald had indicated, that you were going to run out of money if you didn't make those ARC payments. And that's just a minimum amount that you should be making. The other thing that we've heard at least since I chaired this committee the last 7 years is that you couldn't put more money in than an equal amount to what the employees were putting in because of your charter. And so every year, I think if you look at the record, on the record, every year I've asked you to go back and take a look at the charter, or at least have some discussion. When that came up this year, I asked my staff and I talked to my committee. I said, are you hearing anything about the charter? Because I was under the impression the charter was something that can only be addressed every so often. Now I hear that you can do it
Though
more
historically,
often.
the
You
charter
can do it
is-
anytime you wanted to.
Historically, the council has never done it out of the charter conventions, but you can.
The reason I have the concerns about this is, number one, the people that are in the pension plan deserve to know that their plan is going to be funded. And to ask I believe right now, I'm not sure I have that in front of me. I think I do. Your employees are what percentage are the employees actually putting in?
About 10.2%.
Yeah, so if you ask them to put, and you're matching that.
And we're, actually, the city puts in about 18%.
Okay, but you're asked, they can't put more than 10% in. It's rank and file. So if you change the charter, it'll give you that opportunity to do so. And now I'm going to go back to what happened in 2010. You passed some sort of an ordinance allowing extra charges on restaurant tax or some sort of a occupation tax. And it's my understanding that was designed to be used to help take care of the pension plans that were in dire straits already back in 2010. There's a disconnect here somewhere. I don't understand what it's all about. I mean, what are you doing with the excess money that's coming from that restaurant tax? Is that going into the general fund?
I think that the restaurant tax, I think, certainly was in part to pay the difference. The increased contributions for the police and fire pension system was at least the discussion at the time. But yeah, it goes into the general fund. There have been increased contributions for both, but there's no question that the restaurant tax revenue has exceeded the amount that's being
So if
contributed.
the restaurant tax was put into place to take care of pension problems, or at least part of it, where do we go? And you're not willing to look at making it, the only people that can make additional contributions here is the city of Omaha. I mean, you're already asking the employees to take a big burden here. So it's almost like everything we've asked over the last 7 years has fallen on deaf ears. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think the people the citizens of Omaha need to understand what's going on here. I think it's a blatant disrespect to the employees as well as the citizens of Omaha. And I'm sorry if I'm kind of upset about this, but I like to think that if you listen, work with us, we're willing to work with you. But I don't see any cooperation whatsoever from the city of Omaha. So with that, I don't know what to ask unless you have an answer for that.
I don't, and all I can say is what I think I've already said. And I appreciate what you're saying. I think there is a concern. The ARC, at least in my view, has gone up and down a little bit, but we still haven't met it. There's no question since we made the assumption changes in 2018, we have not met the ARC. We actually met the ARC for the couple of years before that. When we changed the rate of return, we have not. And that's absolutely true.
You know, with Omaha Public Schools, we put in statute that they had to make their ARC payments. I don't know if we have the right to do that to you or not. I think we probably have some sort of ability to help you in that regard, but
I don't know that.
I mean, we can't do it. I mean, we're here. You are here today because your plan continues to be underfunded.
We are.
And City of Lincoln worked with us. They're over 80%. Omaha Public Schools, they're not at 80%, but they're going in the right direction. I don't know what more to say, but you won't have to listen to me much longer.
No,
because
I
this is my last hearing.
and I'm not gonna. I understand.
All right. Any other questions? All right, you want to talk about the Omaha Police and Fire now?
to.
I won't say any more about that.
Senator Coulterman, Senator McDonald, Ms. Allen, and Senator Lindstrom remotely. My name is Bernard Indenbush, Deputy City Attorney. My name is spelled, first name is Bernard, B-E-R-N-A-R-D. Last name is 3 words. First word is lowercase I-N. Second word is lowercase d as in David, E-N. And the third was capital B as in boy, O-S-C-H. Obviously, again, we're in year 2 of our Milliman as our actuary. Again, I'd have him here to answer questions, but they're unable to travel. You did receive the actuarial report as of January 1st of 2022, as well as an experience study for the period of 2016 to 2020. That experience report was accepted, and the changes were made pursuant to that experience study in the October report, which is with the effective date of January 1st of 2022. So the point is that there's no lag between the assumption changes that were made, and you actually see them in the report that we provided to you. The return for 2021 for the police and fire system was 22.15%. The changes that were recommended by the experience study were actually relatively minimal. The only economic change was there was a decrease in the anticipated pay increases for firefighters from years 4 through 16 of their career, from a 0.75 to a 0.5. The significant change, much like it was for the civilian system, was the updating of the mortality table, and then a few other slight modifications. Much like it was with the civilian system, those changes in assumptions ate up to the extent probably approximately a 3% increase in the funded ratio of the system. The funded ratio of the system, notwithstanding those changes, did increase from 55.1 to 57.5, an increase from 44%, as you indicated during your preliminary remarks. The net assets of the system were actuarially determined to be about $936 million. The real assets of the market value of the system as of January 1st of 2022 was over $1 million. The good thing for that is, at least for purposes of the actuarial report, as we move forward to next year, anticipating that our returns will not be good, the rates as well as the market value are smoothed, and because of the good returns for the past couple of years, that will provide some insulation for the losses that we anticipate seeing during calendar year 2023. There is no question that the system did not meet its ARC, but notwithstanding the changes in assumption, the deficit decreased from 2.649 to 1.62%. Again, I know we've discussed that in some regards, and it has been, no question, it's been difficult to make the ARC since the assumption changes went into effect in 2017 that decreased the return of investment of the system from 8% to 7.75% in this particular case. And as you've seen in the report, we're now in the 10th year since the significant pension changes were made. The Omaha Police Department, police officers subject to the collective bargaining agreement with police officers made changes in October of 2020. Changes were made relative to the fire bargaining group effective in January of 2013. At that point, currently the projection indicates that the system will be fully funded in 2042. The last projection that we had was 2046. And quite frankly, at the time that the pension changes were made, it was anticipated it would be fully funded in 2046. So much like many of the other things, obviously the systems are somewhat similar. They do have different investment portfolios, different investment policies. There is at least some change here as regard to the two significant bargaining groups in this particular plan. Are the police bargaining group and the fire sworn bargaining group. The city does have a collective bargaining agreement with the police bargaining group through 2025, but the bargaining agreement with the fire bargaining group ends at the end of 2023. In the event that as we get to next year and we see some increased issues with funding status, we do have the ability to negotiate changes with the fire group. In regards to the pension changes in 2010 to 2013, I'll just talk a little bit about those. Those were significant. Not only did current employees take a reduction in benefits from including increasing years of service to retire, increasing age of retirement, as well as doing some things to minimize the ability of people working overtime in the last year of their career to spike their pensions through something called the career overtime average. And then any new hires after that period of time no longer have a pension that's based on their base salary. The period of time to reach that pension is longer, as is and the maximum you can receive is lower. The contribution, ultimately, that resulted in increases between 13.5% and 14% in the contributions the city was making, from roughly 33% and 34% depending on the system, and the actuarial value of the reduction in benefits for the members of the system were 14% or so. So again, I know what you're interested in. I know that when it comes to the ARC, that's obviously an area of concern. When it comes to many of the other factors, what we're actually seeing in this pension system is exactly what was projected when the pension reform started occurring in 2010 through 2013. That pension reform was based on a group of citizens and city officials known as the Bates Commission, made a number of recommendations and changes. And notwithstanding the fact that I know there's concern about not meeting the ARC, if you look at the projections that went in place 10, 11 years ago, we are right on the projections to be fully funded. And the problem is the biggest liability is the unfunded actual liability for those employees who are currently receiving their pensions. And as you indicate, it's difficult to make ask employees who are current employees to pay more because of what the normal cost is for their pension. But again, the difficulty is whether we love it or not, or like it or not, even with some of the changes in the economic assumptions that we've made, we're still on the graph. We're exactly where, if you talk to Kavanaugh McDonald 10 years ago, where do you want to be in 10 years? We're exactly where they told us we want it to be and we should be. And that's maybe little comfort when you're talking about the ARC, but at least when you look at the overall picture, that is the reality. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I won't repeat. I'd even say the kind things that I said about you even after the last time, but I won't repeat them for purposes of time.
First of all, I hope you don't take it personally,
I do
because
not.
I'm not
I do not.
intending to shoot the messenger.
I do not.
I just hope that the people in Omaha might hear what we're talking about and give some serious consideration to our concerns. One last thing that I would ask, you guys, do you borrow any money in the city of Omaha? Do you do any bonding?
The city certainly does bond,
Yeah.
no question.
Have the bonding agents had any concerns over your problems with your pension?
So we've probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that our bond rating went from AAA to AA plus, I think it was. There certainly had that. As I understand it, that's been discussed in the bonding rating meetings that occur each year, but the rating has not been lowered since that initial determination that was made. So I think it's fair to say it's obviously one of the things that's talked about and discussed, and certainly there are concerns about it. I think, again, notwithstanding some of the discussion, if where we are with both systems is exactly where the fix that was put in place said we should be. Now, I appreciate one or two bad years of investment returns, can obviously have a huge effect. It took us years to overcome 2008. And we hope that you hope you don't have that, and you hope you've done some things to prevent it. But so yes, does it come up in concern? It has not resulted in anything negative since the initial change was made 10, 12 years ago.
But they haven't done anything to increase your bond rating either. have
No,
they?
correct. We're at the second tier that you can.
And when the lesser your bond rating is, the higher your interest rate is. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you're paying more because of concerns that they have about some aspect of your finances. And I have to think that this is a major contributor to that.
And I think so far we're still, as I said, the second highest level bonding rate that you can have. Our interest rates are still low, but there's no question.
Yeah.
20 years ago we were even at a higher level, and we would have taken it.
The only other thing that I would say is, while you have an assumed rate, you move from 8% down to 7.75%. What we're seeing from a national perspective is moving even into the 6.5% arena. I know that would make this look even worse.
Sure.
And I know you don't want to do that, but that's something that the assumed rates, to think that we're going to get 7.75% to 8% is somewhat difficult in these times. And I'm not asking you to lower that anymore because it just make it look worse.
Well,
But the reality is that's a concern that I have.
certainly a concern. I would say that the city's the systems investment advisors didn't think the last reduction was necessary. They certainly don't think it needs to be more. And probably more importantly, I think with some of the increase in actuaries' responsibilities to look at the risk and volatility in the market, both system actuaries have looked at that and have indicated that they're comfortable with where we are. But I do appreciate that may change, because things have certainly changed in that regard.
I'm just telling you what we're seeing on a national
Sure.
basis from a trend in public retirement plans. And I know ours have all gone down to 7.5. We're moving towards 7.
And they certainly tell, I mean, we've had that discussion, and there's no question that the police and fire retirement system probably has, they're more active. They get in and out of things more frequently. There's probably a little more volatility in their returns. And I think you see that in the actual report that it
Sure.
indicates that's the case.
Bernard, I don't have any other questions. Senator Lindstrom, do you have any questions?
No question.
All right. Well,
Thank
hey,
you.
Good luck. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. I appreciate your concerns, and good luck to you in the future, sir. And good luck, Ms. Allen, as well.
Thank you. Okay. Joe Lorenz. Joe? I picked up on there earlier. Welcome, Joe. I won't be as hard on you.
Good afternoon. Good to see you. My name is Joe Lorenz, Lorenz, and I am the Douglas County Finance Director. I think I've been here every year since you've been having this. And one thing I want to thank you for is I think every year I've followed the city of Omaha, and it's made my life easier. Sorry, I couldn't
That's because you're going in the right direction. Would you spell your name, please?
Lorenz. But let me give you an update on the Douglas County pension defined benefit pension plan, take you through some key benchmarks. As of January 1st, our funding status was up to 73.9%, which over the course of the last year went up 3 points, but over the course of the last 3 years has been up 8.3 points. Our assumed rate of return is 7.5%. I know you were just having that discussion, but if you look at our 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year results, we've been able to beat that 7.5% over that period. So given that we've been able to do that, on a fairly consistent basis, I think we're comfortable at the 7.5. Both on our market return and our actuarial return, we've had double-digit returns over the past 3 years. So our member and employer contribution rate has been consistent at 8.5% each for a total of 17%. Our ARC is running about 26 million a year, and we've been able to contribute that at about 100% just about every year. This year, the expected amount is a little lower, but I'm confident that the actual amount will be higher. And one of the reasons is that we use some of our ARPA money to pay premium pay to our employees, and that's increased our payroll by at least 5%. So just some other highlights. The accrued liability of the plan as of January 1st was $150.4 million, which was lower by $9.2 million than a year ago. We have a plan with a little over 4,000 participants, but 55% of them are active, which is still a healthy ratio for a mature plan. I won't go into a lot of detail about why we're here, because we've talked about it in previous years, other than saying that in 1997, they did some enhancements to the plan, which included the Rule of 75, increasing the benefit formula from 1.5% to 2% of pay. In 1996, we were 97.8% funded. By 2010, we were 57.8% funded. We lost 40 points of funding in that time. So in 2011, we made some changes. That was one of the year I came on board with the county 11 years ago. So we got rid of Rule 75. We lowered the accrual from 2% of pay to 1.5% of pay, and we also changed the maximum retirement income. All this is for new employees, from 60% of a participant's final average to 45%. And the result was, since that time, in these past 12 years, our funding level is up 16.1 percentage points. So I always tell this committee that turning our pension around is like turning around an aircraft carrier. I think we've got it turned around, and we're going in the right direction. There's going to be periods where you hit choppy water like this year with the market results, but I think overall we have very positive trends. We're very committed to getting above 80%. And as an example of that is a little over a year ago, our corrections guards wanted to upgrade their early retirement benefits to be similar to our sheriff's employees. So we told them that could only happen if it didn't have a negative impact on the plan. So we worked with the actuaries, and we negotiated an agreement with the union where those employees would contribute an extra 2% of their salary to get that early retirement benefit without the county having to match that contribution. Our actuary is Hub Silverstone, and they have estimated now that by 2027, the plan would be 81.8% funded. So I think we're really starting to get within pretty close to being able to be over 80%. And like I say, depends what the market does, but I'm pretty confident that we'll do that within the next few years and not have to come down here.
Well, the good thing is you won't have to put up with me any longer.
Yeah, we're going to miss you.
Joe, welcome back next year. Huh? No, all kidding aside, we keep track of all this, believe me. Since 2018, you've gone from 68 to 74% funded. We saw similar results with the city of Lincoln. I think you're going in the right direction. That's all we can ask. That you continue to. These things, you're right. These things don't turn around overnight.
And, we don't chase yield. We don't really invest in alternative investments. I mean, I was shocked this weekend when I read some articles and they said some pension funds were in cryptos. I mean, to me, that's just mind blowing. But, we would certainly never consider anything like that.
You don't have to go very far to find out public pension plans that invested in alternative investments.
Yeah, and we don't do that.
Right. All right. Well, hey, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Lindstrom, did you have any questions? I forgot to ask.
No question.
Thanks. Okay, next we have John Thurber and Jeff Bishop for OPPD.
Thank you, Senator Colderman. I'm John Thurber, Thurber, with Omaha Public Power District, the Director of our Treasury and Financial Operations area. I'm sorry Mr. Bishop was not able to join us. He's actually out of town today, and so he sends his apologies to the committee for not being able to attend. Hopefully I have good news to share on Omaha Public Power District. As you noted earlier, we did increase our funded ratio from 72 to 75.5%. And we did that. It was kind of remarkable. We did that with also decreasing our discount rate from 7% to 6.5%. And the district did that every 5 years or so. We go through what we call an asset liability study where we look at our investments and the liabilities. And we have an investment consultant and actuary that kind of looks at what our return should be with our investment policy in place. And they thought it was prudent to reduce it from 7 to 6.5%. We think it's a conservative move, and so that was great to do that. The big thing that the district did last year was we contributed an additional $95 million to our pension plan beyond the almost $56 million that our ARC payment was in 2021. Of course, the district has always made 100% of its ARC payment ever since the pension has been in existence. So that additional contribution really did support the increase in the funded ratio. And the district does save funds when it has excess earnings in a reserve to help support additional contributions into the retirement plan. And so our intention would be, if financially prudent to do so in the future, to continue to do that. So we're looking forward to joining those two that dropped off of the committee's reporting requirement in the future, and we'll see where this leads. But looking forward to continuing to increase our funded ratio.
Appreciate it. You are moving in the right direction. Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks for your willingness to come down and testify.
You bet.
All right. Senator Lindstrom, you have any questions?
Good on my end.
All right,
Thank you, Senator Coleman. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, not last but not least, Bill Klingman from Metro Area Transit.
Afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Golterman and members of the Retirement Systems Committee, my name is William Klingman, or Bill Klingman. That's C-L-I-N-G-M-A-N for the last name. And I am the Finance Director for the Regional Metropolitan Transit Authority of Omaha, or Metro. I also wanted to apologize on behalf of our CEO, Lauren Sensick, as she is unable to make it today. She had a prior commitment, so she couldn't make it. Metro is the public transit provider for the Omaha metropolitan area. We provide fixed, paratransit, and express services. Metro also provides services to the cities of Council Bluffs, Bellevue, La Vista, Papillion, and Ralston by virtue of our agreed upon service contracts with those municipalities. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee regarding Metro's hourly employee pension plan and the corrective actions that we have taken to improve the funding status of the plan. I'm happy to report that over the last several years, we have continually and consistently increased both employer and employee contribution rates, lowered our assumed rate of return, and improved the overall funding status of the plan. Since 2016, we have increased the employee contribution from 6% to 7.75%. Increased the employer contribution from 6.5% to 7.75%, as well as changed the normal retirement age from 65 to the age when the employee reaches full retirement for the purposes of receiving Social Security benefits. We eliminated our early retirement option and changed the benefit factor percentage used in the calculation of the monthly benefit for employees hired after January 1, 2018. We are currently in negotiations for a new union agreement to go into effect on January 1, 2023, and we anticipate the employee and employer contribution rates to have a modest increase with the goal of continuing to improve the overall funding status of the plan. In addition, 2 one-time lump sum contributions have been made to the plan in the last 5 years. The first was for the period of January 1, 2016 and ending in August 31, 2017, an amount equal to 1% of the total wages of active plan participants, making the effective employer contribution rate 7.5% from July 1, 2016 to 2019. A second one-time lump sum contribution was made at the end of 2020 in the amount of $350,000. The amount represents the estimated difference in calculated employer contributions compared to the anticipated contribution attributed to the reduction in working hours due to COVID. This one-time lump sum contribution increased actual contribution to 11.1% of payroll of 2020. Additionally, in our 2021 actuarial evaluation report, we had reduced our assumed rate of return from 6.5% to 6.25%. In 2022, we maintain this rate of 6.25%, but we will continue to analyze this rate in the coming years to ensure it continues to be an achievable rate. These assumptions were reviewed and adopted by Metro's Pension Committee and Board of Directors. We have 182 active members in our plan, 200 members in pay status, and 56 terminated members as of January 1, 2022. The funding status of the plan is 71.5%, which is an improvement over our 2021 funding status of 68.5%. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the committee, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Senator Lindstrom, do you have any questions?
No question.
Thank you. You're going in the right direction. Keep doing what you're doing.
Will do. Thank you.
With that, I will close the hearing. Thank you for all attending, all of you that are left.